So Rob, how did you get started in the speaking business?
Fundamentally, I think it goes back to probably university in some ways, because I always knew I had communication skills. I was president of my pledge class when I pledged a fraternity. I was in the education part of our fraternity for a couple of years, very involved in terms of on-the-ground stuff with our 100 members. And I always felt that I was going to be involved in the communication field somehow, but I didn't really know how it was going to happen. And it probably wasn't until about 1985 when I had really locked on that I wanted to develop a training business. And that was representing Tom Hopkins up in Seattle, and then for many, many years promoting and marketing his seminars, and people like Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar and Tony Robbins in the early 90s, and the history goes on. In March of 2000, we had the ACT chapter host the national convention in Canberra. And you were there, I was there. It was unbelievable. And I think that's an important thing, because ACT rescinded as a chapter in 2000. New South Wales was basically offered the opportunity to take in the ACT chapter members, 20 of them.
Which we did.
Which we did. And that was a transition that came into my year that was quite interesting, because it's 3 hours on the road. Those members deserve to have service. And likewise, we also had in 2001 the amalgamation of the Paramedic chapter, which had been around for many, many years.
That's true. Yeah.
So to do those two things on my presidency was an interesting blend of membership dynamics, historical remembrance in terms of what had done way before my time, but also taking into account that I really felt that each one of our members were shareholders in its own association. And so I felt very important as, elected officer and serving my mates, because it's only for love. There's no money here, as you know. And so, when you're putting in 10, 15, 20 hours a month, or however the barrier might be in terms of measuring things, you've got to look at what's on the top end. Now, you don't come back for a second year unless you did something right the first year.
Having served on your committee, you felt there was a lot more to do.
Yeah.
And so your goals were actually more like 2-year goals. Rob, what was the highlight or highlights of your presidency?
Being able to amalgamate and bring in the other chapters into New South Wales in terms of Sydney as its base. Also, the highlights would have been getting really on track to the education of the 8 core competencies. We drove that as workshops out in Parramatta, and we averaged, nearly 45 or 50 people every month. And what's powerful about that is it set up what happened in 2002, which is
the how-tos.
Well, more than the how-tos, which that did happen as well, but it set up the template that we Mark and I and Yvonne, Valerie Orton, we set up the template that Mark brought back to the United States National Speakers Workshop for camp presidents, the template to start our own, what we call now, Speakers Academy.
Yes. Was there a worst moment or a low point?
The low point, I think, was the night that we left the landmark Park Royal in 2001. We were the last event in 2001, and you and Dean were there, you remember?
Yes.
And literally that night, when that meeting was over in November 2001, that night they began tearing down the room.
To make it into flats.
To make it into flats.
Apartments, yes.
Never again was any other event ever held there. We were the last event, and we'd been on the books for a couple of years to have that hotel. And they honored that commitment, which I really appreciated. But in terms of actually nostalgia, I remember Tom Hopkins saying in 2000 when he showed up at our chapter and presented about 250 of us, and the chapter made about $5,000 from that night, which was great for our coffers. But I remember Tom Hopkins even saying, "This hotel is the first hotel I ever presented to when I came to Australia in like 1978." And I thought, wow, maybe a bit of a tear. But
you got over it.
We got over it. I'll say another thing in 2001 is that New South Wales hosted the very first Spring Skills Workshop.
Yes, I remember.
It was unbelievable.
It was
we had about 35 or 40 APSs and CSPs, and we had some awesome experiences with that. And then in 2002, with the help of course, my co-chairs, David Pinglace and Keith Abraham, we once again hosted it again at
it was very successful.
At Coogee
Yes.
Coogee at the Holiday Inn, which was...
and we had Steph Duplessis.
That's right. He came from South Africa.
Yeah.
That's right. And we had some great on-the-ground experiences in 2001, and that built again in 2002. We had, I think, close to 55 or 60 people, something like that. But all APSs, all CSPs. And if you think about the number that we had back then, we only had about 90 to 100. We really drew nearly 2/3 of all the ones in the entire country to come to an educational event. And that was pretty powerful. So 2001, my theme was the more you learn, the more you earn, but to earn well, you got to learn well. We really stuck with that. It worked well for us. And then 2002, I shifted gears and completely went off that because we kind of used it and abused it and drove it home to a different theme, which was more about the holistic big picture. And my theme in 2002 was a rising tide lifts all ships.
Was there any other challenge that led to a better outcome for the association?
It was in the board meeting of 2003 at the top end, and I was representing the interests of New South Wales, and we'd had over the last 6 to 8 to 10, 12, 15 months so much talk at the national board meetings about accreditation and changes and so many things. And we really had gone through a lot over that period of time. Now the highlight that comes off that is that there were some changes made that allowed people to be able to put their paperwork in and everything else and be recognized for their CSPs and not have to wait to the next calendar year for the convention. And the good news is, like ASM's, APS's, as soon as you get your CSP, you can start working with it. And I think
that's a good change, isn't it?
It is a good change. It came out of a bad situation, but at the end of the day, you know, we have to look for the glasses more than half full.
Yeah. How did your topic develop?
But my basis was always from the ground point of being a certified trainer, then a facilitator, and an educator in small to small, medium-sized groups.
What are your thoughts on producing product?
They've changed over the years. For many years, I really didn't have product because there's so much good stuff out there. I would refer to others' material because I believe that my mentors like Tom Hopkins or Zig Ziglar or Brian Tracy in the field I'm in, or the Wayne Berries in Australia, Doug Maloofs, they've said so much already that's great. You know, going out there and repackaging that or rebranding it, my time wasn't to have done that years ago. It has been in most recent years because I found my own voice, I found my own message, and I think it takes time to find out what that is for yourself.
What is one must for all speakers to be more successful?
Don't be surprised how long it's going to take, because it's going to take a while. But always be willing to go back to the basics and learn more. And Jim Rohn would know. He's taught some amazing things over the years. But you know, I think the fine-tuning of his message that morning that I remember was this: don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. And I think for us, we've got to remember that we're in the business of performance. We're in the business of skill development, and we've got to work on ourselves as well before we can go out there and work on others.
A top tip:
never lose sight of having fun with the people you work with. You know, there's moments to be serious about business, serious about economics, serious about your health, serious about our industry, and that has its place. But I think, you know, we're in the people business.
Yes.
Dogs and cats and birds and spiders don't buy what we do. You know, people do. So
have fun.
Have a good time.
Do you know, enjoy the speaking, enjoy the preparation, enjoy and when you do, other people enjoy it too.
Look, it has been a great honor to have been able to come to this adopted country for me and be an American who's learned many of the virtues of Australian life and to be been taken in to some degree by fantastic mentors and mates in this industry, specifically in New South Wales, to have served and been on a chapter executive committee for 5 years, the national board for 3. My business, my focus in my career has changed quite broadly in different ways, not only wide in terms of the picture, but also the depth of it. Because I think this is one of the only industries, and I'm sure others have probably brought in their own slant on this, where as the older you get, the better you fine-tune, I think you can be around for a long, long time.
Rob Salisbury, the New South Wales Chapter President, 2000 to 2003.